Good evening, Sylvie. Good evening. You had some exceptional experiences in your life, and in 2012, you even had a near-death experience. But before that, you had an encounter with your husband, who had died 2 or 3 years previously. We will start with this encounter. Could you tell us how you experienced this? Yes, I know my husband well enough, and he was in the military service. And in 1998, I had every now and then some premonitions about certain future occurrences. And on the 27th of February 1998, he prepared the car as we were going on a skiing holiday. And so he came to me and called me by my nickname, saying, "Caddy, did you prepare everything?" I said yes, but I kind of felt I did not want to go on holiday. So he continued saying, "Oh dear, you and your premonitions. I put the baggage in the car and we'll start tomorrow morning at 5:30. On Saturday evening, we had arrived at our destination. And on Sunday morning, we booked our ski lifts, got our skis, our boots, and everything was ready. On Monday morning, one of our twins hit his head as he fell down on a bit of ice. And suddenly he said, 'Mom, this ski resort will still be bringing about a grave misfortune to us.' We had rented a holiday apartment in the region of Lens-le-Veillard, close to Lens-le-Bourg, in the Savoie area of France. We had breakfast. My husband was registered in the ski club within this center, and so off we went to the ski school. We had agreed to meet up with our skis and all our paraphernalia at the car at 5 p.m. My husband went down some stairs and left, but suddenly he came back saying, "Oh, Caddy, I forgot to kiss you." So he kissed me. It was a long kiss, but it was not a kiss indicating that we will see each other again very shortly. He went down the stairs saying, "Adieu." So I thought to myself, why does he say adieu? Well, my children were with the ski teacher in the ski school, and I happened to notice that there was a helicopter flying over our heads, transporting probably some poor skiing accident victim. And the ski teacher said almost the same thing, laughing, "Still another broken leg." At 5 p.m., I was at the meeting point, our car, but what I found there was a police minibus. And they asked me, "Are you Mrs. Adémard?" And I said, "Yes." And I knew immediately that something had happened to my husband. They brought him to the local mortuary, so it was that way he came back as a corpse, and he was consequently buried. I couldn't sleep in my bed for 2 years, because at least for me, he was not dead. Since he was 18 years old, my husband had been using the same perfume by Saint Laurent, Kouros. Also, shortly before his death, my younger son, 7.5 years old at the time, once emptied all the remaining drops of Kouros into little phials, and he was scolded for it by his father. Well, I was sleeping on the sofa for 2 years, but at some point, I decided I had to sleep in my bed once again. So one day, when I was standing in front of my bed, my husband was there. He was very muscular. He used to do a lot of sports, and now he was standing before me. He was wearing the blue bathrobe made of wool from the Pyrenees that I had purchased for him, which was open in the chest area. My husband was from Martinique, but he was born in Toulon, and now he was standing there before me. And I said to him, "Christian, why did you leave me and the children? We love you so much. Why? How am I supposed to cope with the housework and all that? How am I supposed to manage?" Well, now he was with me, smiling at me as he used to smile. I even saw his tooth. He had crowns on some of his molars made of silver. I recognized his smell, and he said to me in a very, very far away voice, in a low and hushed voice, I had no choice. You must know that I would never have left you and the children, but I really had no choice. But I will always be there for you, but I had no choice. So I said, what should I do? He replied again, I had no choice. Now I leaned my head on his shoulder, just like I used to do. I put my hands around his waist. I felt the warmth of his skin. It was really his body and nothing virtual. I felt it. I took him in my arms and asked him, why are you leaving me? And he replied, Kadi, I had no choice. I would never have left you and the children. And then he left. I went to bed, and the next day I thought I was dreaming. But when my children came into the room, we were all smelling churros, my husband's eau de cologne. So it wasn't a dream. It was him that I saw, my husband. I saw him. And now I have to thank you, Catherine, for telling me something that made it all click for me. Namely, from 1998 to 2023, I have been looking at the reports of all the people who were in a coma or who had had a near-death experience. But when these people returned to their bodies, their brains and hearts were working again. My husband used to climb up to the place called La Fermasse, also in the Savoie area of France, with the group when doing winter sports, for example, skiing and slipper skiing, where the chairlift was broken this time, so he had to walk 10 or 15 yards to reach either the chair lift or the drag lift. He collapsed due to a heart attack and a bleeding vessel in the pericardium. Thereby the heart was compressed, and that's why it exploded. So now I understand why he said, I had no choice. It was because his heart had exploded. The brain and the heart have to work when someone returns to their body, as far as I have understood from all these near-death experiences. So he was not able to return to the earth because his heart no longer worked. It had exploded. Well, after the death of my husband, I continued doing winter sports. It's because of my children that I did not change my habits. I drove to La Fermasse, where he is supposed to have died, and there I sat down and was crying. But otherwise, I didn't perceive anything. On another day, and it was summer this time, I met someone who said to me, let's go up to La Fermasse. We still have to get some eggs there. You stay in La Fermasse, and I'll go down cycling with your boys. And then I sat there with a rose, talking to my husband. A gentleman came up to me and said, what's wrong with you, my little lady? I said, I lost my husband here a few years ago to a heart attack, and I came to talk to him. And this gentleman said to me, but he didn't die here, madam. And so I asked him how he knew that. He died in La Fermasse, but in the La Fermasse that is located on the Lac Val-Cenis. So go to the Val-Cenis lake, and on the left you will see a small sign saying La Fermasse, and that's the direction you should go. So I asked my friend to take me there, and when I got out of the car, Catherine, I was overcome by a feeling of well-being. There are no words for it. Somehow, it was just outside of time. I then touched the bar of the drag lift. Then I walked the 15 yards to the chair lift. But still, I couldn't see what was on the left-hand side. I didn't see anything, but I felt where he had died. And when I finally turned around, what did I see but 4 or 5 marmots standing on their little hind legs, staring at me. Usually the marmots run away, but now they weren't moving. They were just staring at me. I felt so good looking at them while I was touching the chairlift, where I put down my rose. And when I got back into the car, the marmots were still there. Even my friend found it frightening at the time. Then I went on my way and we drove off. When my husband died, my 7.5-year-old son started screaming in the middle of the night and said his father had kissed him and made the sign of the cross on his head, so he no longer dared sleep there. When I asked him about it, he said, "That's not true. It was a dream, Mom." Why then did we sleep together in my bed for a year? But he doesn't want to admit it, and I think he's building up a protective wall for himself. Before my husband died, my children played music, and a music teacher used to come to the house to give them lessons. After my husband had died, I continued to support this. He was the last French heart transplant patient. He was quite old, and in the meantime, he has now passed away. He came on Tuesdays, and we had cake and drank fruit juice. As we were sitting on the sofa, we suddenly saw someone walking from the door to the staircase, like a cloud coming out of a pressure cooker and rising upwards. This cloud was moving upwards, so I went up, and up there I got so cold, I mean really cold, as if I had been plunged into ice water. And when I exhaled, there was a cold vapor, just as if you were talking while walking outside in the middle of winter. Since that day, I've been going up there, aware that someone is up there, but I'm no longer afraid of anything. Sylvie, thank you for sharing this experience with us. You had another experience. This time it was in February 21st of 2012, and this was more like a near-death experience. Could you tell us how it came about and what your experience was like? I have had major back problems since 2008, and on the morning of February 21st, 2012, I was suffering so much that I took a strong muscle relaxing medication. I walked hunched over, but I didn't want to demonstrate to my 3 sons such severe pain, so I took a second tablet at lunchtime. I remember cooking a chicken and French fries, and my ex-boyfriend was sitting at the table with my children. I served what I had cooked, the chicken and the French fries. Then I said something to my kids, but I don't know if my words were understandable or not. So I said to them, "I'm not feeling very good, so I'm going to bed right now." I went into the bedroom, then fell on the floor, and my twins were very frightened and reliving the same scene as with their father. So they called the fire brigade. 3 firefighters were on duty. I was lying on the floor while a senior fireman was giving me little pats on my cheeks. And he said, "Stay with us, Mrs. Adémard. Don't leave us." At some point, however, I could no longer feel the little pats. I rather found myself in a narrow corridor with thick walls on both sides. You understand, it wasn't cotton wool. It wasn't snow, nor was it cotton candy. I can't explain to you what it was. It was white without being white, and it seemed, if I touched it with my hand, that my hand could pass through it. It was quite weird. Well, 2 big walls, and on the floor there was a thick white carpet. I was moving, pushing myself forward, but I had no weight. It was as if I was a leaf, and yet I was moving forward. All this was quite odd, weird, and this noiselessness. And on each side a wall, and I moved along very gently, and in the distance, very far away, I saw a small circle of light. How should I explain this light? It's not the light that we usually see. It's a light that is neither white nor yellow. It is a light inviting you to come to it. But it was so far away. From where I was standing, it was about 4 inches in size, and I was far away from it, and no noise whatsoever. When you are at home and you have your peace and quiet and you say, "Oh, how nice, now we have our peace and quiet," and yet there are still noises. But here, there was nothing of the like, nothing. I felt fine. I had no more pain. Then I felt the little pats on my cheek, and I heard the fireman say on my right, "Don't leave us, Mrs. Adémard, stay with us." I again felt a pat, but it didn't hurt anymore, and I was gently moving toward this light, feeling incredibly comfortable. No more suffering, all pain was gone. I was feeling so good, sheltered, relaxed, and I was moving forward. At some point, on my right side, I saw a small stick figure, similar to the drawing of 3 to 4-year-old children. A circle with a stick, 2 legs and 2 arms, just to the left of this light. I was moving on, still seeing this stick figure. I didn't see my little sister, who had died at age 16, nor did I see my mother and father, nor my girlfriend, nor my husband. There was no father-in-law, nor grandparents to be seen. I saw none of them. The only thing I saw was this little stick figure. To the left of this light, it didn't move. I was moving on, gently and within all this calm, when I suddenly heard no. It wasn't the no of a man, a woman, or a child. I will never know what it was. Since 2012, I've been trying to figure out who this little stick figure is or was. And now, while I'm talking with you, something has become clear to me. In 1985, I was to give birth to twins after having had 2 miscarriages previously. And after giving birth, the doctor and the midwife came to see me in the delivery room. My husband was there too. They asked me, "Did you know you were expecting twins again?" I said to the doctor, "Why, no." And he replied, "One of the twin brothers remained in the placenta. They were identical twins. He must have died in the 3rd month of pregnancy. And when he died, he got stuck in the placenta." I asked him, "Could I have died because of that? For example, from a secondary disease?" And he replied, "Please consider that one of the fetuses is stuck in the placenta. If you had lost this fetus, you would have lost your son too, because they were identical twins. So one single home, one placenta for 2. Since this near-death experience, I have been looking for this little stick figure. What could it possibly be? I wanted to give this child a name, even if it wasn't born, and I then called it Jocelyne. When I celebrated my son's 33rd birthday, I also wished Jocelyn a happy birthday in my mind, because he is still with me. I believe that this little hamster was a child who was not born because he said no in order to protect his brother, saying to itself, "I'm not going into the light because my brother, my twin brother, needs me." I woke up then, but not in the way of some who have returned to the body. I just woke up. I got a little slap and I felt the pain again, including the pain in my back. The fireman said, "That's it, she's awake. Don't go back to sleep, madam. Follow me. You're not sleeping anymore. You're back with me." Again, I was taken to the hospital and I kept my experience to myself. But I also tried to talk to my children about it. But my children are scientists. They only believe what they see. So I had to carry it around with me all alone. I wanted to talk to someone about it. I consulted 2 psychiatrists and a psychologist because I started to wonder if I was crazy. Each of them, including my GP, told me that I was totally normal, that I was just simply a woman tired by life and her childhood, and I indeed didn't have such a good childhood. I was tired, that's for sure, but not crazy, not bipolar, none of that. Then, when seeing your videos, I realized that I wasn't alone. And I said to myself, now you finally realize, Sylvie, what you've experienced. It's a near-death experience, that's for sure. And you've also seen Christian. Thank you very much, Sylvie. Thank you so much. I think you told me shortly before that you're no longer afraid of anything. So you're probably no longer afraid of death either. No, I'm no longer afraid of death because now I know what it actually means. I'm no longer afraid of anything, not even death. The only thing I'm afraid of is that I would have to suffer until I die. I don't want to suffer before I die. Yet that's understandable. And I have something else to say about this. My mother died of colon cancer, and in the final stages, she also developed bone cancer. She was from the Picard area of France, and on the same day, she fell into a coma. She said in Picard dialect to her father, whom she adored, "Dad, harness the horses, I'm coming. Harness the horses, I'll be there soon." Which meant, "Dad, harness the horses to the plow, I'm coming." They were farmers, you see, and I think she saw her father and left, so she died an instant later. I'm not afraid of dying, really. I'm not afraid of death anymore. Sylvie, did you practice any religion in your life? Do you have a particular faith or none at all? My mother was Catholic. She wasn't a practicing believer, and she had 9 children. Every Sunday, my mother listened to Mass on the television. She also spoke Latin. She loved the Latin Masses, including Gregorian chants. But she didn't go to church, probably because we were 9 children. However, I was baptized, I received communion, and I was married in church. But I was more or less a Christian because my mother was a Christian. My father was an atheist and nothing more than that. He didn't believe in anything. Every now and then I went to the church in order to light a candle for my younger 16-year-old sister. But apart from that, I never went to church. So this was probably just a cultural aspect for you. Yes, the only thing I can tell you about this since the near-death experience is that I'm retired. I'm 64 years old, and I help people preparing their retirement, supporting them with their pension applications, also with their divorce applications. It's just about administration. It's funny. Also, my companion said, "The way you attract them so easily, how can this be possible?" We go shopping, and once in a grocery store, when we were buying tomatoes, a lady approached us. And after 5 minutes, I knew everything about her life. I play the lottery, but I don't drink alcohol. I don't smoke, but on Saturdays, I play the lottery and drink my cafe latte. Just last Saturday, I was sitting quietly drinking my latte when suddenly a gentleman stood in front of me. And within a half an hour, I knew everything about his life, even though I didn't know him. There was a lady at the checkout in the supermarket, and 5 minutes later, wouldn't you know it, my friend asked me, "How do you know all this? Do you know her?" And I replied, "No, I don't even know who she is." And he said, "Why then is she talking to you?" Well, I'm not going to say to these people, "Dear madam, dear sir, I have no desire to listen to you," when they address me. Yes, you're absolutely correct. And ever since I've had this experience, people have been approaching me. And tomorrow, oh no, it's on Monday, I'll work on a pension file and a disability file for someone for a small cup of coffee. In return for my work, I just ask for a small cup of coffee. And in doing so, then seeing people who are happy. Then all I am missing is one thing. No, not gratitude, but to look into shining eyes. Thank you, Sylvie, for the interview. Thank you so very much. Thank you very much, Catherine, and stay healthy. Thank you very much.